In the quiet village of Umudu, nestled between river and rainforest, lived Ejiro, a young painter whose art could do the impossible. It came to life. Animals leapt from her canvas, vines crawled out of her pages, and once, an entire rainstorm she painted poured onto the village square. The elders called it a blessing. Some whispered it was a curse. Ejiro called it her gift. But Ejiro painted in secret now. That night, while lightning cracked the sky and thunder rattled her windows, she sat cross-legged before her biggest canvas yet. Her heart was heavy. Rumors spoke of land sellers, strangers with machines, and whispers that the village would be sold. Fear twisted in her chest, so she painted. She painted the village exactly as it was, huts with rust-colored roofs, the sacred tree, the shrine, the river glowing under moonlight. She even painted the villagers, Marmarito with her maize, Keen by the drums, Papa's sandals by the door. With the final stroke, wind howled through the room. Her candle died. Everything went black. When Ejiro opened her eyes, she wasn't in her room. The village stood before her still, silent, and colorless. Every hut, every tree, every path, but no people. The world was her painting, and something was very wrong. Ejiro staggered backward, her bare feet crunching on cracked earth. The painted village stretched in eerie silence. Huts stood still, as though holding their breath. Even the river, once lively, was frozen mid-flow, like a smear of ink on parchment. She called out, "Marmarito, Keen, anybody?" No answer. The wind answered instead, a low, curling whisper, not quite language, but filled with menace. Shadows moved where light should have lived. They slipped around corners, under doors, into trees. Ejiro clutched her brush, still in her hand. Somehow, it had come with her. The canvas lay behind her, half buried in dust. She picked it up and tried to paint lighter beam from the sun, warm and golden. The moment she did, a soft glow erupted over the path. The shadows hissed and slithered away. The paint still worked. But she didn't remember painting these shadows, and then she saw it etched faintly in the clouds, a pair of eyes, watching, not human, not kind. Her painting had brought the village into another world, or brought another world into the village. Either way, she was trapped, and the shadows were waking. The creature was not fully formed, more suggestion than substance. It slithered at the edge of Ejiro's vision, cloaked in ink-like tendrils. Wherever it passed, the air chilled and the color drained further from the surroundings. Ejiro clutched her brush like a weapon, but it felt useless in her trembling hand. She stepped back, careful not to make a sound. Her feet crunched against brittle leaves that had once been vibrant green. The shadow stilled, and then, like mist in morning sun, it vanished. Ejiro's breath caught. She needed to understand this place. It felt like her village, but twisted, caught between a memory and a nightmare. Her painting, her own creation, had somehow become a doorway, but to where? She wandered past the empty huts and fading murals of the village square. Colors bled out of everything: walls, woven mats, even the flowers in the shrine. The gods of her ancestors, once carved in bright wood, now stood pale and silent. Then, in the distance, she saw something. A flicker of flame, a real flame. She followed it, drawn to its warmth. It led her to the grove behind the elder's hut, where the sacred tree stood. Miraculously, it still glowed faintly, golden veins pulsing through its bark like blood through skin. It hadn't yet succumbed to the darkness. She fell to her knees before it. "Please," she whispered. "I didn't mean to do this." The tree's light pulsed in response. A whisper rose in her ears, not malevolent like the first, gentler, sadder. It was the tree itself. "Your fear gave the shadows form. Only your courage can take it away." Ejiro's hands shook. Fear had birthed this world. Then how could she ever hope to destroy it? Ejiro sat beneath the sacred tree, listening. The wind here didn't howl, it murmured, like an old woman telling stories in the dark. Each rustle of the leaves whispered of a path forward, but none were clear. She knew she couldn't stay hidden beneath the tree's protective glow forever. She dipped her brush into golden paint and painted a compass on a nearby rock. It began to spin, then stopped, pointing toward the mountains, the only place she had never dared paint. Gathering her canvas and courage, she stepped out. The shadows watched, but did not follow. The tree's light clung to her skin like armor. The path was twisted, filled with distorted versions of the familiar crumbling bridges, upside-down huts, rivers that flowed backward. And always, those watching eyes in the sky. When she reached the edge of the grove, she saw it, a portal of rippling shadow, like a curtain drawn between two worlds. Her heart pounded. She didn't remember painting this either. Someone or something was painting back. Stepping through the portal, Ejiro entered what looked like her painting studio. But it was wrong. The paintings on the walls moved, shifting and twisting, each one depicting a memory. She had buried fights with her father, whispered rejections from villagers, moments of doubt. At the center of the room stood a figure cloaked in shadows, holding a brush identical to hers. It turned slowly. It was Ejiro, or rather, a version of her consumed by fear. "I painted what you feared," the shadow Ejiro said. "You gave me life when you doubted yourself." Ejiro lifted her brush, then "I'll unmake you." They clashed not with fists, but with paint. Color against void, hope against despair. Their brushes moved like swords. Each stroke brought landscapes to life, a field of light here, a storm of shadow there. Trees sprouted and crumbled, rivers froze and boiled. The studio shook with the weight of creation. "You're not stronger than me," Ejiro said, breathless. "But I am you," the shadow Ejiro hissed. "The part you won't face." Ejiro closed her eyes. She remembered the first time she painted alone, scared. The joy, the terror, she saw all of it now. Then she opened her eyes and painted not to defeat, but to accept. She painted her fears, her doubts, her mistakes. She gave them shape, then gave them peace. The shadow Ejiro began to fade. "You understand," it whispered, before dissolving into a flurry of petals. Ejiro stood alone, but freer. Returning through the portal, Ejiro found the village beginning to shift. The shadows no longer chased her. The sacred tree glowed brighter. Her painting, still with her, now shimmered with new light. She painted the villagers, one by one, but nothing happened. Until she whispered, "I forgive myself." Then the canvas pulsed. One figure, Mama Ito, emerged, dazed but alive. Ejiro cried out with joy. With every honest emotion, she poured into the brush grief, hope, regret, love. Another villager returned. Not all at once, but slowly, like dawn after a long night. She was bringing them back. At the heart of the village now stood a strange tower spire she had never painted. It rose like obsidian, humming with shadow, the source, perhaps, of the infection. Ejiro approached it, brush drawn, the air around it warped. Faces appeared in the stone, villagers, not yet freed, locked in moments of fear. She dipped her brush into white paint and touched the stone. The spire resisted, then screamed. The ground shook, the shadows fought back one last time, coiling around her wrist. But Ejiro didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." And she painted a door. It opened. The canvas shone brighter than any she had ever painted, brighter than fire, brighter than the sun. It pulsed in her hands with the beat of a living heart, and from it, the first figure stepped forth. A child barefoot, with laughing eyes and ash on his cheeks, emerged from the spire's base, stumbling into the light. Then another, and another, elderly men with walking sticks, women with baskets, boys with slingshots, girls with ribbons in their hair. One by one, the villagers returned. Ejiro watched in awe as her people emerged like petals blooming after a storm. Each held a faint glow, a soft echo of the canvas's light still wrapped around them. Some stared at her in confusion. Others fell to their knees in relief. And then, "Ejiro," her mother gasped, Rushing forward, they embraced tightly, her mother's tears hot against her neck. "I thought we were gone," she whispered. "I thought you were gone." "I brought you back," Ejiro said softly. "I had to bring you back." Her father joined them, nodding solemnly. "You faced the dark." "I made the dark," she replied, guilt twisting inside her. But he gently lifted her chin. "And you made the light too." "We are both, child, all of us." The villagers gathered in a circle around her. No one called her cursed now. No one looked away. They had all seen the shadow realm. They had all felt fear. And they had all come home. But the spire still stood, cracked and humming. Ejiro stepped toward it. "There's one more thing," she said. "One last painting." The crowd held its breath as she approached the cracked tower. This time, she wouldn't paint to restore what was. She would paint to transform what could be. Ejiro stood before the broken spire, her brush trembling between fingers stained with ash and light. Behind her, the village held its breath. The wind had quieted. Even the shadows seemed to retreat, waiting. She knelt and stretched the last piece of canvas before her, not blank, but scarred from the journey. It was wrinkled, torn at the edges, smudged with paint and tears, and yet, it was perfect. It had to be. Because this painting was not just for her. It was for all of them. She closed her eyes and dipped her brush into the last of her paints, mixing the deepest blue of sorrow with the brightest yellow of hope. She painted not a replica of the past, but a vision of the future where the village stood strong, where shadows lived beside the light, not in defiance of it, where people laughed again, not because there was no darkness, but because they had faced it and survived. She painted children playing beneath the sacred tree, now taller and glowing with gold-veined bark. She painted a new shrine, its doors open to the skies. She painted herself Ejiro with her brush raised, no longer afraid of her gift. With the final stroke, the canvas burst into radiant color. It surged through the cracked spire like lightning, filling every gap, every shadow. The spire didn't crumble. It transformed. From ruin and fear, it became a monument, a tower of light and dark entwined, a symbol of balance. The shadows settled like gentle dusk at its base, no longer a threat, but a reminder. The village cheered, tears flowed, laughter echoed. Ejiro stepped back, overwhelmed. For the first time, she saw her power clearly, not just as a painter of images, but of possibilities. The vanishing had ended, and something new had begun. Shadow painter and the vanishing village.